I'm trying to build a business on the side where I'm making money from my creative endeavors. It's not happening. I'm not making any money. So I'm going to have to just admit defeat. Whew. That one is hard. I hope that it releases a little bit of the shame you might be feeling. Hello, friend. Welcome back to the channel. I am so happy that you are here. I hope you're doing well. I am actually here in my office. It's about a 3-minute walk from my apartment and I'm really enjoying it. I'm trying to get it more decorated, but it gets a little warm here, especially on the weekends, and I'm recording on a Saturday, so it's a little warm. So we got to figure out a few things, but here we are. I like this setup. I don't have to move things around my apartment anymore, so here we are. So today I have a short video, or at least that's my goal. As you know, I'm very verbose, so we'll see if that actually happens. But today I want to just have a short conversation with you because I have met so many creatives who are experiencing a lot of shame around having to go back and get a 9-to-5 job. These are creatives who maybe left a typical 9-to-5 or something similar to kind of traditional work. They left, made an announcement, I'm leaving because I'm going to pursue fill in the blank, fill in whatever creative endeavor. And now they are neck deep in it and realizing it's not working. It failed for whatever reason. And now they are faced with the reality they need to go back into a more traditional job setting. Whew, that one is hard. It really is hard. And let me tell you, I have been there multiple times. I'll tell you my story first because I feel like that's just helpful. So I worked at a bank. I was a bank teller for 2.5 years and just got to a point where I hated it. I was in a cubicle all day. I hate typical 9-to-5 jobs. Absolutely hate them. I was doing photography at the time. I was doing really well. Everybody's photography businesses were popping off. So I thought, well, they're doing it. I certainly can do it. So I quit and decided I was going to be a full-time photographer. And it did not go well. And within probably 6 to 8 months, I was doing a lot of gig work along with my photography. So by that time I had 5 or 6 jobs. Mostly I was doing shipped shopping, which is grocery shopping for people. Did really well through the pandemic. And then it kind of started to taper off. So I was doing a lot of different gig work type stuff. When it came time for my husband and I to move to Oklahoma, to Tulsa, I knew that as much as I wanted to just pursue my creative endeavors full time, they still were not bringing in enough income to really even cover the cost to keep my business afloat, like my website, my email list, all those things. Okay, I wasn't even making enough money to cover those. So I knew something had to change, and I knew we wouldn't be able to move, and for me to continue to do this gig economy work where I was working 4, 5, 6 different piecemeal jobs. So I started looking for a more regular job. I found my current job. It's actually a remote job. My general schedule is pretty flexible, but it still falls within kind of that typical Monday through Friday 9-to-5. I remember feeling like such a failure when I had to admit, okay, none of this is working. This gig work is no longer sustainable. I'm trying to build a community of artists. I'm trying to build a business on the side where I'm making money from my creative endeavors. It's not happening. I'm not making any money. So I'm going to have to just admit defeat and get a job. If you're there, if you've been there before, or if you are there, if you're considering that, let me tell you, I understand. I understand the shame that is right there. And I understand the disappointment, and I understand that it feels like a failure. But can I tell you what happened that I absolutely did not expect to happen? If you are in a place where you are it's financially difficult, okay? And that's where I was for the last 9 years, basically. When you are in that place, there is very little mental capacity for literally anything else other than I'm surviving. What ended up happening to me during that time of gig work economy, struggling to make ends meet, financial difficulty, everything falling apart, felt like all the time, I began to diminish as an artist and a creator and a creative and a multi-passionate. I began to diminish. My dreams became smaller and smaller and smaller to where my vision board literally had tires for my car because I knew we needed tires and I knew we didn't have the money for it. So my vision board went from I want to travel the world for a year full time to I would just really like to be able to put tires on my car. And that perfectly explains the diminishing that just happens when you are in such financial straits that like it becomes survival. I'm waking up, I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to figure it out today. And then I'm going to go to bed and try not to have very dark thoughts and try to wake up again the next day. What I did not expect to happen is when I got this job in Tulsa that I have now, my mental capacity immediately expanded. It immediately expanded because I knew where my paycheck was coming from. I knew when it was going to come in. I knew how much it was going to be. I knew how much I needed to set aside for taxes. And it took such a heavy burden off of the financial department that now all of this creative energy literally just burst. It just like came bursting forth because now I have all of this space in my head that was dedicated to figuring out how to survive. Then over the year and a half that I have lived here in Tulsa, we were paying down debt. Daryl got a decent job. He doesn't love his job, but it pays the bills. And we were paying down debt, getting better and getting better financially. And then I got a really big raise, which really helped. And then we were able to pay off all of our debt. And so now I'm in this place where I have all of this creative energy, all of this creative space, all of this mental capacity to pour back into the things that matter to me, because that financial burden that was literally filling every little corner and crack and crevice in my mind, it's been reduced. It's been reduced to something manageable that I can check in on instead of it looming over me every second of the day. Now, before you go off and start applying for 9-to-5s, let me tell you a little bit about how I dove back into 9-to-5 in a way that was life-giving so that I didn't feel completely crushed, because I knew I needed more traditional work for a season to get my feet underneath me again. But I also knew I had to be very careful about what job I took, because otherwise I would just be crushed yet again. I couldn't do something cubicle. I needed something flexible. I needed something that, okay, it's challenging to me, but it's also something that's not going to crush me in the process. So I looked at remote work. And I was able to find something that is remote. We do have an office that you can see here that I'm able to come into if I want to. However, I can do all of my work from home. Now, I know that not everybody has that luxury. This job is definitely a huge blessing, and I give 100% credit to God for even bringing me this job and linking me up at the right time, at the right space with the right people. It was perfect. But I will give you an example of my husband. Daryl needed a job when he moved here as well. And there were some jobs that he applied for. He would love to do ministry work. He's never had an opportunity. The door's never been open to him. He's applied for the last 10 years and there's never been an open door. And so we've just always taken that as that's not where we're supposed to be. But he applied again and still closed door. The only job that he got in return that returned his call after applying was an Amazon delivery driver. I tell you this story because it is not the job he wants. It's not a job he loves. However, he specifically applied for that job because there's a lot of space for him to be able to listen to podcasts. He works alone. It's 4/10, so it gives him 3 days off to be with me. So even though he had to kind of descend, if you will, into a job that he really didn't want, He also was smart about, okay, if I'm going to have to get a job, let me find a job that's going to bring in some decent money, but also isn't going to crush me in the process, that maybe has some flexibility, like unexpected flexibility built in, so that maybe I can work on some of my own stuff in the process. So for example, my husband has a blog and he's a big thinker. He's like a very big brain. What working with Amazon allows him to do, even though he does not like his job, okay? Like he's finding the places to be grateful. I'm not saying he's like grumbling about it, but I'm saying like it is not a job he wants. It is not a job he likes. It is not a job he wants to be in forever. However, he has seen the areas where, okay, here's a job that gives me 10 hours to myself every day, doing more kind of mindless tasks. So now I can fill that space with brainstorming, listening to other resources, listening to podcasts, listening to books. Like there are all of these things that now he can do in those 10 hours while he's working. So that's all I want to say is before you just like go ahead and jump in, I want you to consider those things. I want to share this for you because I hope that it releases a little bit of the shame you might be feeling if you've come to the place in your journey as a creative where you need to look for some traditional work for a season. If that's you, I want you to know I've been there. I have been there, and it was not where I wanted to go. It was not what I expected. However, there is a blessing in it that I did not expect. If that is you, if you find yourself in that place, first of all, you're still an artist. You're still a creative. Your ideas still matter. Don't let go. Don't think that you're no longer an artist or a creative or multi-passionate or a side quester or a hobbyist simply because you need in this season something that's more stable and steady. Secondly, if you end up in a 9-to-5, a more traditional work environment, and you change your mind, you're allowed to do that. I want you to know you are allowed to change your mind and decide, I would like to do this and have my creative work be something I do on the side. You're allowed to change your mind. I know plenty of people who have done that, who have very prolific, wonderful, beautiful, creative lives, and it's no longer their full-time gig, okay? You're allowed to change your mind. If you dive into this, you find a job you really love, and you decide, I don't think I want to do this full-time. I think I want to do this job full-time instead. You're allowed to change your mind. And finally, if it's come time for you to jump back into more traditional work, I want you just to consider a few things, okay? First, I want you to try to find a job that you're not going to absolutely despise. Now, sometimes I know how inflation is. I know how the job market is right now. Sometimes you don't have a lot of options. Totally get it. Within the realm of you having options, if there are a few options, try your best to find a job that you are not going to absolutely despise. I do social media management and I distribute books for publishing, okay? The data entry portion is not my favorite. However, data entry is really nice because I can listen to podcasts, I can listen to audiobooks and different things like that without really getting distracted because it's just typing, copy, paste. I have the freedom and flexibility to take breaks, to get up, to go, get an ice cream cone. I have flexibility. I already knew, even though bank jobs, they're good paying, I hate being in a cubicle and being stuck in one place all day without the opportunity to leave. I hate that. I absolutely hate that. So it did not work for me. I hate being stuck in a cubicle and I can't walk around. I don't like it. So I knew I couldn't get that kind of job. So I want you to consider the things that you would absolutely hate and try to avoid those within the realm of what's possible, what is offered to you at the moment. Secondly, I would consider looking for remote or hybrid type of jobs. Those generally work really, really well for people who are creative because it gives you the flexibility that you you really crave, but it also gives you kind of that stability that you might need currently. And finally, I would just consider, and I think this is just always something to consider, but I'd also consider finding a place where they treat their employees well. This job that I have now, I am so valued. I am so loved. I am so taken care of and treated like a human and appreciated that it really, 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 really makes a difference. It makes a difference. Again, not everybody has that privilege. Not everybody gets that. Daryl's job is hit and miss. Like sometimes they very much appreciate him and let him know. And then on the whole, Amazon on the whole is Amazon. So again, you don't always get what you want. However, if you can keep those things in mind, I think that even if this is for a season, you can still thrive. You can still thrive as a creative who had to put maybe their full-time creative endeavors on pause, on hold, or maybe just bring it back until they're part-time. You are still a creative, okay? You're still an artist. You still are worthy to pursue your craft, even if you had to take a pause, even if you changed your mind and decided, I think the traditional work is where I need to be right now. I hope that's encouraging for you. I'd love to know what you think in the comments. I'd love to know if you've ever made this transition either way. I've done it both ways multiple times. I've transitioned both ways multiple times, and each one holds pros and cons and difficulties and strengths and struggles. So I'd love to hear your perspective. I'd love to hear what your experience has been. But more than anything, I just want you, if you're in that place, to release any shame that you might be feeling that you're having to go back to a more traditional 9-to-5. All right? Love you, friend. Have a great day, and I will see you next time. Bye.